Hello folks and welcome to an InkDependence.com brief video review and water drop test. This time we have franklin-christoph's dark chocolate. I mentioned in a couple of the other videos that the labels were a little bit hard to read on a couple of these bottles. Dark chocolate is the exception. This one has a nice white background behind the word. I like that. They should keep that up. You'll see on the bottom here, writing fluid ink. Formula number 412. That's an interesting formula number. Alright, so there's the bottle. As always, these are glass bottles from Franklin-Christoph. Let me open this one up. And there you go. Oh, I got a little bit of splatter on my hand there. That's fine. So this is the ink. This is a really dark brown. In fact, almost like a brown black. It's so dark. So you can see there, pretty dark. It's darker on the page though. Let me close this up safely. All right, there we go. So here is Franklin-Christoph Dark Chocolate. This was a ink that I used in a couple of different pens. Of course, I have this in this Andorro, this Faber-Castell Andorro. I couldn't pass this one up. Look at this gorgeous wood barrel. It's smoked oak. If you haven't seen one of these before, they're definitely worth checking out. Faber-Castell nibs are great. They're some of the best steel nibs. I really like Franklin-Christoph's nibs, of course, but the custom ground ones there are really the story. These Faber-Castells are always very good. The thing about them is they're always also quite wet. So I also used it in, let's see, this one, which is a Pilot Metro. Everybody knows about the Pilot Metro. Kind of a real cheap, well, sorry, I should say inexpensive pen. The nibs for me always read a bit dry. They're always a bit too dry and a bit too smooth, but nonetheless, you rough them up a little bit. I'm not going to tell you how because I don't want you to mess up your nib and then blame me, but I like to rough up the nib a little bit and then it works a lot better. But nonetheless, it is a lot drier than my Faber-Castell nibs, and so it gives a nice balance between the two. You can see here that it's definitely a brown ink, but also it's really dark. This is a very dark ink. When I think of dark chocolate, I think of, I don't know, like Hershey's Special Dark. This isn't quite that dark, but it's real close. So there you go. This is definitely a brown ink. But in a lot of situations, you're probably going to be able to get away with this in an office or something, because even though I've got pretty decently bright sunlight right now, it looks really dark when you use it with a wet nib. And it behaves pretty well with a wet nib. There is a little bit of bleed. It's not a huge amount or anything like that. Darn it, where did I put those? I just took pictures. Ah, here we go. Let's see. So, shuffling papers. Yeah, alright, here we go. It's the one thing I forgot to get out for this review. Here it is on 20-pound paper from Staples. The above, the top bit right here is the Andorro. And you can see it does a little bit of feathering. With the Pilot, not so much, right? Very little of that, if any. And then on the back, you can see a little bit of bleed through here, but really it's just kind of mostly show through, I think. I don't know, it's kind of bleedy. I think this page, like I've said in a couple of the other reviews, is a little bit cheesier than the average 20-pound, but that's something you're going to get with office paper, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let it roll. But you're not going to see a lot of bleed from this ink. I haven't really seen much, and of course if you're using decent paper, you're not going to see any at all. This is just sort of, I don't know, worst case scenario office paper. So anyway, there you go. But with the Andorro, you can definitely see that it's very dark. It's darn near black. Right, so you can probably get away with this one pretty much wherever you go if you're going to use a wet nib. In the other nib, the medium Pilot Metro, it's drier and you can see there's definitely more shading. You can see it's definitely a bit browner. So there you go. There's a couple of good ways to alter the look of that ink. The top bit of this review I wrote with the Andorro because I really like the way that thing writes, but I decided to write with the Metro down at the bottom because it's going to give you more variation. You're going to see it's definitely more brown. There's definitely more shading. It writes just as well though. It's a little bit on the wet side, I would guess, this ink, and so it works really well in those Pilot Metros a lot of people have. But you know, either way, it's going to work pretty well for you, I think. This is a good ink. It's not my favorite brown of the collection. I thought it was until I started using the next brown, which you'll see, but this one is a really darn good brown, and I love browns. So here's the ink comparisons. Zoom in just a touch there. The dark chocolate, of course, on the top, looking real dark. You can see sort of light swirls up here in the top, but where the ink settles is much darker. Brown 732 is coming up on the blog the next tomorrow, maybe the next day, something like that. And that is a really great brown. Look at how brown it is there. It's a brown. So if you want to get away with a brown, dark chocolate. If you want to write with a brown that looks brown, 732. I've also got it compared there to Air Core and Sky High. Just for funsies, kind of comparison blues and browns. I don't know why I like that combination. And then down at the bottom, Sailor Kiwaguro, which is an ink that I really like. It might be my favorite black, so I'm going to use that to compare with a lot of times. All right, so here we go with the water test. All right, so here comes the water. Oof. Immediately swirling away. No real water resistance on this guy. And go ahead and say that right now. We'll just have to see what's left over. Actually, let's get a little bit up here on the water test letters too. All right, so let's wipe those away. And voila. Yeah, not a lot left. Get a little bit of a green there. That's actually from this napkin. I kind of put it on the green bit, but that's not in the ink. There's no green in there. So yeah, not a whole lot left. I wouldn't say this has got any specific water resistance or anything like that. Wipe that away. Nah, I mean, you can still see a bit of it here. It kind of turns golden brown, but not a lot here. So don't expect this one to be water resistant. That's the word on the street for this one. Let's look at the chromatography. I'll splice it in here. There you go. So this is what we end up with. I said there was no green in there, and that's true, but there is some really nice like bright blue at the top, which is cool. A lot of these inks have a nice like bright blue base. Kind of want to talk to ink makers about why that is. If you make ink and you have some idea why there's a lot of blue and really cool inks, let me know, because I'm interested. Anyway, this is what the chromatography looks like. You can see down here where I started, there's really nothing left, which, you know, kind of gives away the story on the water resistance there, I think. So, yeah, not a lot there. That's all right. Not every ink has to be water resistant. And then, because it was requested a while back, this is a comparison between the two inks that I've got inked up right now that are very dark brownishes. So over here, obviously dark chocolate. Up here, I went ahead and just smeared it a little bit for fun. But over here is Sailor Doyu, which is kind of a, I don't know, a black-brown mashup? I don't know. It's one of my favorite sleeper inks from that Sailor Gentle series, the new one. So I had to get a bottle of that. I really like that stuff, and it flows great. But it's definitely more black and gray and stuff than this one. This one's definitely more of just a really dark brown, whereas this is a brown-black. So there's a bit of a difference there if you want to compare. Anyway, that's the comparison there if you're curious. All right, so this has been Franklin-Christoph's Dark Chocolate. Not very water resistant, but it does look cool. It flows really well. It behaves pretty okay on cheap office paper. Of course, if you're using decent paper, you're not going to have any problems at all. The ink will look darker if you use a good paper like Rhodia, but that's fine. I mean, it's supposed to be a real dark chocolate ink. It's just barely brown. So check this one out at franklin-christoph.com. I believe that's the only place you can actually get a hold of this. And it goes for $12.50 in one of these nice glass bottles like this, which is 59 mils, I think, so about 2 ounces. But still, that's a hefty amount of ink, and they fill it up to about here. So it's not like the Noodlers, they fill it all the way up to the top of the threads, and you have to worry about it getting everywhere. This one is a very nice bottle, well filled, at their facility in near Raleigh, North Carolina. So they're kind of local to me. Thanks very much to Scott for letting me review this ink for him. I really appreciate it, and I really like this stuff. So there you go, the good word on this. All right, so if you like what I'm doing here at inkdependence.com and you'd like to contribute to the blog, go over to patreon.com/inkdependence, and that will be the way for you to help me out on the blog. I promise every cent helps, but hey, look, if you want to give me as much as you want, that's great too. $1 is awesome. $5 is super rad. Somebody just dropped a really nice donation in there the other day, and thank you very much to my patrons. I really appreciate your help, especially with the DC Pen Show upcoming. I'm going to need some cash flow to spend there. All right, I'll see you guys later on. Peace out.